My name is Josh Singh, and I'm from Lodi, California. I just want to share a little bit about my story and how great God has been in my life. And it's going to be a little confusing here and there, but just stick with me, and I hope that this reaches out to you and touches you in a wonderful way. So, my parents come from very different backgrounds. My dad was from the Fiji Islands. He was born and raised there. My mom was born in Fiji, but she was raised here. And one year, my dad, when he was in Fiji, the way that they think is they want to get out of Fiji and come to America because that's the big dream. And the way of doing that is you get married. You find a wife and arrange marriage, somebody from America, so then that way it kind of moves you along into America. And religiously, my dad's background, he grew up in a Sikh background, and he was very strong in that religion and his practice in that. And so he grew up in that, he's got an amazing story. I'll get into that a little bit later on. And then my mom, she was young, really young. She grew up with a Hindu background, and she kind of practiced it, but not really. She knew there was a higher power, but she just didn't know what it was. But she knew it wasn't this Hindu thing. She knew it was something else. She just couldn't pray to this idol. It just didn't seem right to her. So it almost seemed like God was already kind of working in her life from a really young age. And her parents as well were from a Hindu background, so Jesus and there was none of that ever involved with them. So my mom, when she was 16 years old, she met this guy, fell in love with him in high school, and she kind of wanted to get out of her family, and the way our culture worked like that is by getting married is the way you move out of your family. So she kind of rushed into this relationship with this guy. She fell in love with him. She got married to him at age 16, still in high school, abandoned school and everything, and married this guy and pretty much joined his family. So that's a little bit of her story. And then to go back to my dad, he was trying to find a way to America, and the way you do that is by marrying somebody from America. And so the family found this wife for him that he's going to marry, ended up marrying her. And the crazy thing is, this is where it gets a little confusing, is the guy that my mom married is the brother of the wife my dad married, my dad that's in Fiji. So pretty much it would make my parents brother and sister-in-law. So I know it's a little confusing, but so they were brother and sister-in-law. So my dad married this lady, and he came to America now. So the lady's brother is married to my mom, the guy that she fell in love with in high school. I know, it's very confusing, but it's amazing how God works in the craziest ways. Just to give an example of the guy that my mom married, he was not a very good guy. Didn't treat her right, didn't treat my brothers right. From the get-go, when they got married, the day they got married, he had cheated on my mom that same day. So just to give you a little example of how this guy was and the family. And he was very abusive in many ways, physically, verbally, any way you could possibly imagine. So my mom had pretty much been through hell with this guy. So she pretty much already had 2 kids with this guy, 2 older brothers of mine. And then, so that's a little bit there. And then my dad, on the other hand, got married to this lady, came to America. Everything's going great for a while. And then she actually ended up cheating on him. So it kind of gives the background of how the family was and how God was working in crazy ways. So he kind of got heartbroken off that, because he really did end up falling in love with this woman. So what the family decided was, since both of these brother and sister-in-law are going through these things, why don't we have them talk with each other and try to work out each other's marriages by trying to make it work, because they're both dealing with similar situations. Little did they know, they started talking and trying to help each other's marriages out. But years go by, 2-3 years go by, they start talking a lot. And they start slowly falling in love with each other. And then, while still being married to their partners. And then, before you know it, my mom ends up being pregnant with the 3rd kid. And what had happened was they had made love together, and that's kind of how I was made, was through an affair. And so no one had any idea that any of this stuff was going on. But my mom and my dad, they both kind of knew that my dad was the father. And then I was born. Still nobody really had any idea. About months go by, a year goes by, I start kind of developing, and I start, getting my features as a little kid. And they realize, hey, this guy looks like his uncle. What's going on here? So they put 1 and 1 together, and they figured out that my mom and dad had an affair, and that's how I was made. And growing up, I grew up in an environment that was very abusive from my mom, the guy that she was married to, his whole family. I was pretty much known as the bastard, as a guy that I wasn't blood, so I was always made fun of by the family. Not only that, the guy that my mom was married to was very abusive in many ways, not only to me, but my other brothers as well. And so the environment I was growing up in was not good at all. And what I want to kind of go into this story is how my parents kind of came to know Christ, which is my dad, still a very strong Sikh believer. One day he gets invited to church. Some of his friends were believers. They invited him over to church, him not knowing anything about Christ, nothing. So he gets invited to church, goes through the whole sermon and everything, and he has no idea what's going on. Any new believer that goes to it, and not even a believer, anybody that goes to a church that has no idea what's going on, they're not going to have any idea what's going on. And then at the end of the service, I'm sure a lot of you guys know, churches like to have an altar call. So they had an altar call, and they said, "Hey, Jarnell, my dad, go down there. The pastor will pray with you." And he was like, "Okay, I'll go down. I don't know what's going on, So he went down. The pastor prayed with him, and he just still has no idea what's going on. Everybody's saying, "Wow, the angels are rejoicing in heaven." He has no idea what any of that means. So they ended up going back. They had dinner and a little bit of a celebration for him, still not knowing what any of this meant. They gave him a Bible, and out of nowhere at the party, like the Spirit completely spoke into his life and said, "Go home right now and start reading this Bible." And he literally went straight home and started reading the Bible all night long. And that's kind of how he came to become a believer. And ever since then, he's just on fire for God. And eventually, my dad, he was not in love with the woman he was married to anymore, and he decided that I think divorce is the best option for them. So they ended up separating, and he was doing his own thing as a single man, honoring God, trying to raise me at the same time. But little did I know, I didn't know he was my dad till I was in about 3rd grade. Everybody kept telling me that he was just my uncle, until eventually in 3rd grade, around that time, that age, my dad had sat me down as me thinking he was my uncle, and he told me the whole story and stuff, and I was just like, I had no idea, I was blown away. So my dad was always in my life as me visiting him every now and then, as like a separated parents would do. And my mom, kind of her story, how she came to know Christ, her dad, it was through her dad that he was on his deathbed pretty much, and it was amazing how God worked there. He had a vision, or almost a kind of a interference at nighttime. Some angels came and visited him and said, "Hey, you're gonna die in a couple of days, but this is the truth, that Jesus is the truth and he can only set you free." And ever since then, that day, my mom came to the hospital the next day, and he said, "Hey, you need to give up all this Hinduism stuff, all this whatnot, this nonsense, and follow Christ. He is the only way to make it to everlasting life." And she was like, "What are you talking about? This whole time you've talked about Hinduism and how this is all the real deal and there's nothing else." And he was like, "No, you need to follow Jesus. I had a vision last night, and some angels visited me." So ever since then, she accepted Christ. She started following him. So she was still married to this guy. She wasn't in love with him anymore. But in that kind of culture, you can't divorce being a woman. Like, that's just the way it is. You can't leave. And so she slowly had been saving up money here and there to find her opportunity to get away. And one day, it was some kind of a situation or something where the guy that she was married to had ended up being locked up in jail for some reason. I can't remember exactly what it was. But when that happened, that was her opportunity to leave. So she practically had all her money saved. She found a house, and the guy had no idea about anything happened. She found the house, and we moved out. And we found our own way out. And God was working in amazing ways through that for her to get away. It was literally a miracle for her to get away, because she was practically trapped as a prisoner in this marriage. So when she got away, it was finally able for us to be a kid again, to live a childhood, growing up on eggshells, having to walk around eggshells with this guy that was so abusive. And long story short, so my mom got away. We're all doing our own thing. My dad's doing his own thing. And eventually, the way that God worked, growing up, I always told myself, like, hey, how come my parents couldn't be together? Like, why did it have to be me that this had to happen to? And one day, we were driving, my mom was driving us to school, and our car broke down. And I said, hey, how about we call my dad? He can come help us out. And she said, he's the last person I want to talk to. I don't want to talk to anybody, no guy, nothing. She's trying to do her own thing. And eventually she gave in and said, all right, we'll have him come by. They hadn't talked in years now, but little do they know, they were still in love with each other. That love had never faded. But so a situation happened. He came over, helped out the car and everything. And that same exact day, these FBI agents showed up to our house. We have no idea what's going on. And they say, hey, somebody has to pay for these crimes that have been stolen from houses. So when I was a kid, the guy that my mom was married to, every single house we'd move from, he would steal something from that house every time. Like a fan or a refrigerator or a stove, something he would steal every single time. And they couldn't find him at the time, so my mom had to pay for the prices. And they said, hey, somebody has to pay for these, so she ended up being locked up for about a week or so because of this guy's crimes. And during that period, we had no one to take care of us. All the family pretty much disowned us because my mom pretty much just divorced this guy, you know, and nobody wanted anything to do with us. And the only person that could take care of us was my dad. I still had my 2 older brothers, and I had 2 younger brothers as well. And those younger brothers are all my brothers. I have 4 other half-brothers. They're all my half-brothers. So we were pretty much alone, and my dad had to take care of us. And while she was in jail, he was the one that was there for us. And she realized that, and one day I heard them while they were on the phone while she was still in jail for a week. And my dad started breaking down. He said, I still love you. Like, I still have this love for you. And she said, I still love you too. And then when she came out of jail, they started taking things slowly. And before you knew it, my dad said he asked her to marry her. And she said yes. And that's the happy story. They ended up getting married. And it's just amazing the way God worked in our lives. Like, we never would have thought we'd be here today. No one would have ever known. And today is actually my parents' 10th wedding anniversary, which is amazing. But I just want to tell you guys that God works in amazing ways. I left out a lot of things, but whatever you're going through, always trust in God. Like, He's always got a plan for you. I promise you that. He loves you so much. You are not here for just some reason. You are here for a reason and a purpose, and He loves you, and Jesus loves you.